So let us now have a look at the overall structure of a Fortran code. Most important part is that a code will be executed line by line, starting at the top and then moving downward. That's what the compiler does. It translates each line starting from the top and then ending up at the bottom of this script. So the overall program structure is written here. So you have a, as I said before, start is always program and you choose a name. And then you have to declare all parameters and variables. And I'll show that on the next slides. I'll give you an example. You have to say, I use a constant called G, which is always 9.81, okay, which is the value of the acceleration due to gravity, for example. After that, so after you declared all parameters and variables, you have to initialize these parameters. Whatever you want to use later on, you have to actually allocate values to. It's also good to allocate values even if you don't know or you want to change it later on. It's always good to initialize all values. Then you might open files for output, and I also give you examples of how this is done. So this is where your predictions go, the predicted values. And then you actually start with a calculation section. Okay? It might be an iteration loop where you repeat and repeat and repeat, and then every now and then you produce an output. Then after that, or during that iteration, you produce data outputs, and then end program name. Okay, this is how it looks like. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of declaration of constants. This is how it's done. And if you want to do something similar, you just copy and paste. So this is one of the few examples where copying and pasting makes really sense. So for example, I want to use a constant called nx. It's written here in the top line. Okay. And I want to have this to be 101. Okay. So whenever I use nx within the program, so first of all, integer are full numbers, okay, not decimal point numbers, full numbers. Okay. And whenever I use nx, it will always be 101, 101. And I also included a little comment. And this is how you insert comments in Fortran codes with a little exclamation mark, and then you write. So that when I have a look at this code in 5 years' time or so, I actually know, or it reminds me what nx is. Okay. For example, G here equals 9.81. We can't use units. We can only use values, numbers here, okay? Acceleration due to gravity, okay? And this is a reminder also to use only names that make sense, because I could call G, for example, apple, but it doesn't make any sense. It gets confusing. You know, if you multiply apples with pears and bananas in the end would be silly, okay? So I rather stick to the conventions of acceleration due to gravity is always G, isn't it? Okay, Fortran does not distinguish between uppercase and lowercase. So you can use lowercase g later on and it will allocate the value of 9.81. For example, pi you have to define. So Fortran doesn't know what pi is. And here I only use 4 digits after the decimal points. Okay, you can use more, or you can even calculate. So this is one example. This is how you declare constants and you define constants. Okay, and real means decimal point numbers. That becomes apparent. And the parameter statement means it's a constant.